Today I will share my thoughts on the Polk Audio R200. What surprised me most after unpacking was how big these speakers are. At first I even regretted not opting for the smaller R100, not only because of the less clunky appearance, but also due to the limitations of my listening room. But that's for later. Let's focus on the looks first. In short, the speakers are neatly made with a literal, simple design. I'm not overly impressed, but not disappointed either. They just didn't steal my heart. Nonetheless, objectively speaking, the workmanship is really good. The terminals on the back, the baseboard and front and edges all look excellent. The build quality is comparable with top rivals. I particularly like the diaphragm of the low-tone speaker. It's the most interesting point that immediately catches the eye. What I also like is that the speakers come elegantly packed in cloth material, and the instruction manual, although for the whole series and non-specific model, is great, like a thick, well-made catalog. I appreciate those nuances. But moving on to the most important, the sound. The general characteristics are probably closest to something in between my Quadral Platinum Plus 2 and the Mission QX2s, in which, by the way, the tweeter looks almost identical. While I feel the Polks are not as dark sounding as the Missions, they definitely feel darker than my Quadrals. I can't help but miss a little of that openness and three-dimensional sound, with more air and space in scene layering. The higher tones, although not completely muffled, are not very resonant and lack a touch of dispersion. They're not completely natural sounding either, so I guess what I'm trying to say is I would like to see a bit more finesse there. The upper mid-range feels slightly recessed. This, in combination with slightly muffled, low spatial highs, creates vocals that are not as bold, as large, and I would like them to be. On the other hand, in exchange, you can't really pick up on the lack of bass. There is a significant amount of it, especially in the lowest range, around 60 Hz and below, which, let's admit, is rare to find in a bookshelf speaker. At the same time, the low frequency range isn't cheaply boomy and generally doesn't overshadow the rest of the music. This deep bass will definitely be appreciated when listening in a larger room or farther away from the speakers. In my setup, however, sitting a bit closer, I prefer more of the mid to high bass. However, I can't blame the speakers completely because you can't ignore that they are a bigger brother of the R100. It would probably be a bit wiser to test the R100 too, though I bet the overall sound characteristics would remain similar between the two models. But as you see, for this reason I won't really go into details about the average performance quality at a closer listening distance or at low volumes. When you sit farther away, the speakers really have a kick. You can sense a lot of power, and I think that if we connected a more powerful amplifier, the speakers could show even more. This power, deep bass, and depth in the stage are all Polk's strong points. As for the width of the scene though, it's not nearly as impressive, and similarly the stereo imaging lacks finesse due to limitations of dispersion in the tweeter. As a result, details layered on different channels are not very prominent either. To sum up, the Polk Audio R200 is an interesting proposition, but it didn't convince me personally. While at times I enjoyed its authority, I can't help but prefer a bit more openness, liveness, and sound imaging advantages over pure power and bass. That said, in this case, it really all comes down to preference. Judging them in the same categories as slightly smaller but also cheaper speakers that I've previously tested, I personally prefer the KEF Q150 or the Powers & Wilkins 685, not to mention my Quadrals. Although to be fair, they originally were more expensive. With that, if you have a slightly larger room, sit farther away and like a sound with a lot of bass and power, you might find the Polk Audio R200 to be perfect. In many ways, it genuinely can replace a floor-standing speakers. But from similar options that come to my mind, I would also advise considering the Triangle Borea Beer 03 strongly or the Magnat Signature 503. Both have the scale and power, albeit different sound characteristics. And that is all for my take on them. Share your thoughts in the comments and suggest the next speakers you would like me to test. If you enjoyed this review, consider subscribing. Until next time, peace.